Hi, and welcome to the first episode of Worlds Collide in 2025. Or for this one, it's more Bonjour. Yeah, thanks for tuning in for this episode of Worlds Collide. I am your host, Viktoria, and I just wanted to say I hope you have a great new year of 2025 and that you also had a really nice and calm and relaxing and festive holiday season. It was really nice to have a few days off, to have a fresh start into January. So, this one, as you can see in the title and also in my little intro, my little French intro, is about France, moving to France. And my guest is Keith. And we talk about a lot of logistics in this one. So if you are thinking of moving to France and wonder how to do it, he gives great insight. So definitely stay in for this one. And then also we talk about something that will save you money, which is house sitting. This is something that he did, and that was not on my radar. So I think this one is very helpful. So he will tell it about his experience of house sitting as well. And don't be surprised about the echo in his audio because he was recording, it's kind of cool, in this public workspace, which was in the church. That was different. So, yeah. So that was the echo about. All right. And I don't want to tell too much about this, but stay tuned. Here is Keith. All right. So my guest today is Keith. Hey, how are you?
I'm good. A little tired, but I'm doing good.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Of course. So where are you?
I am in a city called Nantes in France.
Uh-huh.
I kind of have to tell people that it's a city called Nantes because everyone's like, not what, not.
It's spelled Nantes, kind of,
Yes,
right?
it's
Yes.
spelled Nantes. I don't know, comes from some Breton or Brège language word, whatever. I live there.
Okay. All right. And where are you from?
I'm from New York originally, but I'm actually from the outer suburbs, just east of New York on Long Island. Um,
Okay.
yeah,
And why did you decide then to go to Nantes?
you know, it's funny because my sister asked this question. She was just here last week, and
Uh-huh.
she started the week with this, why not question. When she came over, she lives in London, all this, and after a few days here, she got it. Like she really liked the place. So not we started kind of practically when we first moved to France, which is a bit of a story, but we were house sitting. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so we had a house sit for 3 months in Bretagne with these really lovely folks. Still friends with them, super cool people, and we wound up just trying to figure out where we've been to France a few times. We had never really been here for an extended period of time. Something like maybe a month at the most. And we were in some deep country, but still not this part of the country.
Uh-huh.
So we were out, a lot of cows. We were in cow country, like more cows than people.
Uh-huh.
And Nantes was the nearest big city,
Okay.
and it had an airport, and it had reasonable Airbnb rates, and so that's why we chose it at first.
And did you mean at first then you already decided to stay in France? Or was it?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. I think France was where we were originally thinking about going,
Uh-huh.
but when we first left, it might be useful just to do a bit of a timeline here. So I've traveled a lot in my life. Been extensively through Latin America. Was down there for about a year. Lived in London about 20 years ago now. And our plan in 2021 was to leave and go move into Portugal.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So we spent the better part of a year in Porto in Portugal. Huge,
Mm-hmm.
huge fans. I can get into why we left. Um, but then we came back to the States to apply for the French visa. with the idea that, yeah, we were going to stay here for a while. So
Okay.
we came over on the carte de long séjour, which is a 1 year renewing visa.
Okay.
And we came in on a house sit. We we secured a 3 month house sit, figuring it'd be time to kind of check things out,
Okay.
and that's how that started. So now that was 2 years ago, a little bit over. Um, yeah, we've been here since really the very end of September of 2021.
Okay.
No,
And that
2022.
and the house sitting, how did you get a hold of this? Did you know the people or
No.
what was it?
Yeah. So house sitting is funny. I don't want to necessarily plug it, but we use trusted house sitters, and they're a big name for this. And I don't know if I would continue to use them for certain things, or if I would start there again because there's trade offs. But they're like the one that brands a lot. But either way, we were on there, and we started doing a few house sits when we left Portugal, figuring, okay, well, at least we can kind of work out rent for a while, check out some
Right.
areas. But it was also about being able to see how people lived wherever we landed.
Uh-huh.
And we went to some really kind of cool places that you would never go to otherwise. Like, I don't know, Royal Leamington Spa.
Okay. So it's like not like touristy places, it's more what the local people do
Pretty
or
much, yeah.
Mhm.
Like so, people. So in case you've never house sit, it's kind of we're watching your cats or dog,
Yeah.
and we're making sure that things go well with your apartment. And some of these are really short term. So when we first did one, my sister lives in London, so we were looking at doing one in London, and we were watching like an older cat, some fish, and then like
Okay.
and then like the house plants, right? And folks were cool.
Right. I mean, a fish also needs food,
Yeah,
right?
they need a little attention, I
Yeah.
guess. Uh, I
A clean
mean,
tank every now and then.
everything worked out. Well, it was like 5 days, so everything worked out. But
Uh-huh.
beautiful place, beautiful apartment. People were really cool about everything. It was a great experience. So we were like, okay, we could do more of this.
Mhm.
So then we tried and booked a few others, and you apply, and if I would suggest that if you were to apply to someone out of the blue, like you kind of have to explain yourself a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
You
Yeah, I
create a
mean, you live
profile.
in their home and take care of their pets.
Yeah,
Of course,
people
yes.
are reasonably cautious, and so we did. And then there was someone else, and we're like, well, hey, we'll watch your dog and all this. And then, so we wound up going out into, I think it was in the Cotswolds in England. And that was in, oh my God, Leatherhead. Maybe Leatherhead is not in the Cotswolds, but the place is definitely called Leatherhead. Strange name. So these people were really nice. We were watching a dog. They had these trails that connected all these different areas, just walking trails. And it was beautiful. We could walk to this pub down the way, and like it was up on a hill, and you could see over it the King Bill on the hill. Uh, it was just a blast. It was really such a beautiful thing for us. So now we've done about 10 of those
Okay.
in the UK, in France, and and in Brooklyn.
And the place where you're living now, is it still house sitting or do
No,
you have your own
no.
place now?
We have an apartment that we are like we've been there for the better part of like a year and a half, and it's not really loving it. So we're looking to switch from there. But it has all the amenities. It's in a good place. We had to buy major appliances for it, which as an American always seems really strange to me. Um,
Yeah. And you don't like it because of the city, just the apartment itself or
it's like we really like the city. We like the apartment. The apartment's nice and basic, but it's like we're paying way too much for the local
Ah,
market for starters. And also, like, while the city has a lot of really cool and nice places, like it's not quite far enough out to be in like greenery and country the way that we like, and it's not quite close enough. It's just this, but I mean, none of it's far. It's all a good walking distance. It's just like it seems like it just shuts up for the night every night, and it just like stops moving, and it's so quiet. Like I was on the phone on the balcony
mhm.
with a friend of mine, and he's like, why are you whispering? I'm Like, I'm the only person out here. I don't hear. I'm on like the third floor, and I can see tons of apartment buildings. I can see a lot of other
Ah,
apartments, and there's nobody.
okay. It sounded to me like you were like one house,
No,
not
no,
surrounded by anything, just nature, but it's still a
yeah,
town.
yeah. No,
But
it's like a modern-ish apartment building, probably built in the 1960s, and it's surrounded with
uh-huh.
similar buildings like that. So it's nice. But it's
Yeah.
like, to be fair, it's like if it was cheaper, my God, if this apartment was half the price and to be the best apartment ever, I would never
Oh, I
move.
see. Okay.
But it's almost like, and there's always some other charge coming up, and it's just this agency. It's not France. It's not even the
Okay.
city. It's just this arrangement. We're like, okay,
Okay. So, okay, that's good that you mentioned it. It's not France, it's just
no,
the realtors or the
yeah.
the what's it? Not the tenant. What's the other one?
No, no,
The landlord.
it's like the real estate agency that is in the middle of everything that we're
Right.
dealing with,
Okay.
and we're really not loving how they are. I don't know. We just we feel like we signed on for a bad deal in a rush, and we're looking to
Uh-huh.
change it. You know,
Okay. And
yeah.
why then did you decide to stay in France?
Um, it's kind of funny because even now we just renewed our second time, so we have our visa for the next year.
Mhm.
And with that, we kind of made up our mind that okay, we're going to spend time here. We're going to make France the place we want to be longer term. And
Mhm.
that's super recent. That probably is something we decided 6 weeks ago.
Okay.
Uh, and we'd spent some time over in Italy. I'd been there for about a month in September, and it's beautiful, it's incredible, but it wasn't really. We were starting to feel France,
I see.
and I don't know. I write a lot about different things in France. I'm fascinated by some of the culture and the food. I don't think of myself as like a Francophile because there's so many more fascinating places. I just wound up in
Uh-huh.
France, but France is weird and contradictory, and it's kind of cool that way. Like it's culturally kind of messy. I'm okay with that.
Okay. And why do you say it's culturally messy?
I don't know. There's aspects of boy, not to bash it, but like this country also has like issues with like race and issues with Islamophobia and issues with class and foreigners, and it does.
Mhm. Yeah.
It just does. And yet, of course, obviously, that's not everybody. And but even in more mundane ways, like the food here can be amazing, and I love French food, but like I personally like things a bit more spicy, just saying.
Uh-huh.
But so there's this considered like a pinnacle, and so many people make incredible food in different things, and at the same time some of the most just terrible junk food is incredibly popular here. Like this country next to America is like where McDonald's is the most popular in Europe,
Oh,
or something like that.
I
Like
did not know that. Ah.
super, super popular. And McDonald's here are really kind of funny. Like they changed their approach.
I
Uh,
know they do like, wait, like they have like, forks and knives and plates and isn't
I,
it?
you know what? I didn't even notice that they had forks and knives and plates, but they had. I was there like on a Saturday night because when all the strikes were going on when we first moved here, and like we literally tires burning all over the place, like garbage fires all the time. Like it's just something that it was just protests and it,
Uh-huh.
and the buses were getting shut down, and we were going between like house sits and trying to figure out ways to go. So we used BlaBlaCar to get around, which is this like ride sharing service and
Yeah.
things. I loved it actually. A lot of fun. You get to like catch up with people. I mean, if you're not really feeling it, definitely happened to me once where I was like, okay, I'm not in the mood for this today. But you pack in with a car and people drive you from point to point, and they always seem to go to a McDonald's.
Ah.
And a couple of nights I was on there, like on a Friday or Saturday night, we stop at a McDonald's and pick somebody up, and it's like a disco, like, like middle of nowhere. You go in, and suddenly it smells like a disco full of like French fries and burgers and kids and moms and everybody. That it's like people. It's like 12:30 at night. Like, okay. So they're doing something different. I have never walked into a McDonald's with that kind of vibe in my life.
Mhm.
You know.
We used to hang out also at the McDonald's parking lot a lot when I was younger.
Yeah,
I don't know, everybody did.
no, we had diners and Taco Bell, I guess.
Uh-huh.
Long Island diners are amazing. There's a
Yeah.
lot of them. Yeah, but just so should you ever be on Long Island, go to a diner.
Okay, and okay. But now in France, like, how did you then make friends?
It's funny that comes up a lot because I guess it's important, right?
Yeah, I mean, of course, nobody wants to be lonely.
Yeah, but I mean, you got to have some of that. Like you just are for a while because I think it's not realistic to think that you're gonna go from one place to the other and suddenly just like meet. You have to kind of like be somewhere. You have to be like seen somehow.
Yeah.
I think people are just gonna hang back. And I've heard that the folks in France, people say like, oh, they're standoffish, they're not friendly. That has not been my experience, by the way.
Okay.
And my French is terrible.
Okay.
But I talked to some expats. You make a point of showing up at some of those events. If you don't like it, you don't like it. I mean, but some of those events. I'm sorry. So there's these expat groups, and you know,
Expat get-togethers, like meetups.
yeah, meetups or other things that are related to like I don't know, nomad something, world nomad or
Mhm.
whatever. My wife also coordinates some of these, so that kind of
Uh-huh.
helps. And then just show like, okay, that's the appointment, that's what it is. Then show up and be there for a bit, have a drink, and be comfortable with that first awkward silence.
I know. Yes.
Like my wife found it really funny when I told her I went to this one event and she's like, because I basically was like hanging out at the edges of it and I wasn't really talking to anybody.
More observing.
Well, yeah, but they had really good snacks too. So I was like,
Okay. Okay.
you know, and they had beer, so I had a beer or two and things. And then after a while, like somebody started talking to me in English, mind you.
Yeah.
But he also started in French, and then when he heard my accent, he asked where I was from and whichever. And that guy wound up introducing me to a bunch of other people.
Uh-huh.
And that's happened to me on multiple occasions where, like among the French people, French friends I know, it was really just like one person
Yeah.
who kind of started talking to me and they're like, hey, join us or, because here in this space, for example, like I know a bunch of folks. I have a workspace, like a WeWork type thing, but it's not WeWork. And it's in a decommissioned church.
This
So
is this is where the echo is from,
this
by
is
the
where
way.
the echo is from.
Yeah.
Sorry, people. I've tried to find other places, but it was just getting a little weird because there's like these tucked away little alcoves and I have to like sit. Yeah, that's why the echo. Oops. It's beautiful and it's kind of amazing, but people are really social here. I mean, they get to their
Mhm.
business, but it's like a cultural thing. Lunch comes, you go eat lunch, you talk.
Mhm. You
That's it.
don't work, you just mingle, get together, have a little bit chit chat,
Yeah,
eat.
some folks do, but it's most definitely a social time. Like and then it goes to a very specific thing. Like there's a limit,
Mhm.
you know, like 1 hour, and that's it. But always that hour.
At work, yeah. Okay. When you go to these meetups, do you do that a lot?
No, not really. I might do like one a month,
Oh,
maybe.
okay. I think that's still a lot. Yeah.
It does feel like a lot because it's always seems like okay, this is not like the time that I wanted to have, or this isn't ideal, or it's like a Friday, but and then but again, it's that thing that's showing up. So the same guy that I met at the first event I was describing, where I was like hanging out at the edge and I was like having
Uh-huh.
my snacks and beer. So he says, hey, you know what? We're going to like I don't know a rugby match. I
Ah,
don't
okay.
I don't really watch rugby.
But you go for the company.
Heck yeah, and it's
Yeah,
like, all right, you know what? I can let's do that. I'll show up, I'll learn something about rugby and we'll
sure.
go. And I met a bunch of other folks there and it was good to see people again. And of course, this being France, they had snacks at the house beforehand. Delicious. And then we go to the event, and people are really into rugby here. Actually, like it's super popular. Um, and it was fun. One of the guys we're hanging out with used to be the captain of the rugby team. So like
Okay.
he was like the mayor. Everyone was coming to visit him. It was crazy. Yeah.
And if you go to the events, are they always the same people or does
Mm.
it change a lot?
Yes and yes. So like there seems to like there's some core group that always shows up. That's usually like the coordinator, the one woman who coordinates one of the groups here. She's become like she's really nice. It's been really cool to like get to know her, get to know the
Uh-huh.
city through her because she also lived out in Bretagne and so Brittany, and that's kind of further out from where we were, so we know a little bit about the area. Other than that, it like mixes up. I would say probably like 60-40, 60% the same folks come, and then there's like a rotating,
Right.
you know.
But did you meet most of your friends that you made, they are expats, or do you also have
No.
French friends?
Um, Probably more French friends than
Ah,
expats at
okay.
the moment. And it's kind of because my French is terrible again.
So they speak English fine.
Yeah. No, like we developed these like we just like I'm working on it. Like I think they just accept
Uh-huh.
that like okay,
You're
you're trying,
learning?
yeah, you're trying here
Uh-huh.
and whichever. And there's definitely some English back and forth. For it's also funny because I was an ESL teacher for about 20 years,
Okay.
so I'm very used to adjusting the way I speak to my audience.
Uh-huh. So more
So
clearly, slower.
yeah,
Yes.
because yeah, because being from New York and especially when I get around family, I can speak very, very quickly.
Okay. I mean, now you speak very well. Everybody can understand you. I'm
I
very sure.
hope.
I can.
Okay, because it's I don't know, because otherwise I'm just well not making any kind of sense. But I do that as well.
So how do you learn the language? How do you learn French?
Uh, because it's really funny. There's layers of learning the language, of course. Like if someone hands me something to read, yeah, I'm fine. Like I can read French now. That's
But do you think as well, like reading French as an English native is easy?
well, I mean, you've got the same symbol system, don't you? So that helps.
But there are also a lot of words in common,
Yeah, there's a
which I
huge
would not understand when they're like said, but like I can read it.
yeah. The
Because we had
pronunciations are radically different.
Because like we had so we were in France this summer on vacation and we had a French rental car and we had a lot of issues with the car. And
Oh
every
no.
time like whatever the light went on and whatever said something on the display, I understood it because the words were so similar to English.
Yeah. Although one of the more disorienting moments I've had has been in a rental car where I forgot to change the language to English because now you can. But
Uh-huh.
and the
Oh.
thing started giving me directions in French. It started kind of telling me there was something to do and problems, and I was having like a bad moment in traffic, and I was already feeling kind of
Right.
just
Frustration.
it was just like you just don't know what the hell is going to do it to you because so I have this thing for and I'm screaming at the thing with the windows down. That does
Road
not.
rage.
Yeah, that doesn't go well in France. That doesn't travel well anywhere.
Uh-huh.
But I think in New York we're vaguely more tolerable of people just screaming. We're still going to think you're weird and keep our distance most
But
likely.
okay.
But in France, man, they don't know. You are Don't ever lose your temper in this country. It will do
Okay.
nothing for you.
Uh,
Nothing at all. I haven't, thankfully,
uh-huh.
except for moments like that I try and keep as private as possible.
Okay. Alright, so back to the language.
Yeah, it's funny. So again, I taught language for a while, and I spoke Spanish before this. And people will tell you that like you know it's helpful to learn a language, but I personally feel like you need to condition yourself to the language as well. So you can study it and you can read it, but you also need to kind of train your ear to it.
Mhm.
And that takes time. It's
Mhm.
this weird thing that happens. It's like as you get to hear it more, then you can speak it more, and as you speak it more, you hear it more, and but you need to take in a lot of media. I practice it every day, and the days I don't, I find myself slipping. It's amazing,
Uh-huh.
and it's like if I am going through a really, like a week where I'm just reading a lot of English or just reading a lot of other things and writing in that and speaking in that, someone comes to me in French and I'm like deer in the headlights.
Mhm.
It unfortunately still keeps happening.
Okay.
So it requires this like relaxed kind of attention to it where you just kind of keep studying, keep reading, keep listening, but maintain and build
Mhm.
and every day.
And you just do then regular, French conversations, going to the supermarket, ordering at the bakery?
Yeah, all those I have pretty nailed. I mean,
Uh-huh.
plus when you think of like the world of possibilities of a conversation, there's only so many things. The real challenge for me remains to be social, kind of casual conversations.
Mhm.
But yeah, all those basics are pretty easy because it's a set script. I mean, okay, I'm going to walk in and ask you for bread and tell you to have a nice day. And we kind of do that. I've done that quite literally about 500 times now. Like I've got that type of thing down. But when we're having conversations and there's three or four people and we're, in a party setting and there's a lot of background noise and things, it's still super challenging,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and, what is it that you do for work that, you can move abroad?
Yeah, I write. I'm a writer and editor, and I write for other folks. And right now, I'm probably going to get back into teaching just because I haven't been in a classroom for about 3 years. And I
Mhm.
never thought I'd say it, but I do find myself missing it.
Ah, okay. And that would you could do this in France?
We'd
And,
have to we'd have to change our visa category, and we're looking
okay.
into doing that. So right now we're on a carte de long séjour, which is basically a tourist visa. And so we're overwhelmingly the stuff is we've been living off of our savings, and then we have other things that are some projects that are paying me from outside of France and so on.
Mhm.
But the thing is, we're probably going to switch to a micro entrepreneur visa here, which is basically a small business visa that would allow me to basically put up a shingle and teach.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, it's one of those where um, we just I found it very easy to keep our costs quite low here, actually.
Mhm.
It's I mean, you can certainly spend as much as you please here, but there's certain things that compared to, again, living in New York and compared to living, and dealing with, frankly, the American healthcare system, almost anything is going to be cheaper that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so, like, all this is also covered with that visa that you have? Like your healthcare, for example?
No, no, that you pay separately. It's a condition of the healthcare that you have to have a supplementary insurance,
Okay.
but it's not overwhelmingly expensive, and you
Okay,
have
can you
access
just say
to.
vaguely, roughly
Um,
how much that is?
I don't see. It's really funny. I don't even know it, but I'm going to say for sure it's less than $1,000. But it
For
might
a year?
for a year, yeah.
Mhm.
But it might actually be less than $1,000 for both me and my wife,
Okay.
which is astonishing when you consider that versus the United States
Right.
healthcare. And by comparison, when we quit our jobs and our contracts were up, that was kind of one of the main reasons why we were like, okay, we want to move. And it wasn't like we were fleeing like healthcare.
Yeah.
Because like if anything happened, we would have had this thing, Cobra in the United States, which is basically after you leave a job, you can then pay for an extension on your healthcare. And the whatever the shoot, I just know it as Obamacare is there. That's also there, but it's not quite as complete. Like I don't know
Yeah,
if
I know.
it might cover emergency services or whichever, but it doesn't matter. That Cobra and it stands for something. It's like something that they came up with in the 80s. And I swear to God, the word omnibus is in there. Like, I don't even know what.
I I will research it. I'll put it to the end of this episode.
I hope nobody ever needs to know what Cobra is. But the numbers were, I think it was like $2,200 a month for each of us, my wife
Yeah.
and I. And
How? I mean, come on. You need to work like 3 weeks for that.
but then the
Mm,
coverage was like nothing. And then they
yeah.
had this crazy deductible and all this other stuff. And I was like, you know what? Like, let's just get injured somewhere else. Like, if something's going to happen, like,
Right.
let's just, yeah, and that was basically part of it. It's like, okay, it was easier to be insured quite literally almost anywhere else in the world,
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
you know, just wow.
And was there another reason why you wanted to leave?
Well, we always wanted to explore other places, and if you don't mind, I don't need to get into like the political scenario
Yeah,
and
no,
things like
I
this.
mean, no.
But we. So my wife and I have been together for about 20 years,
Uh-huh.
and actually a little more maybe. But when we first met, I had literally come back from South America, like, I don't know, a month and a half or 2 months before. I had a sublet in a Manhattan apartment in Hell's Kitchen, and I was friends with the roommate. And funny enough, so a Saturday night came up, and we're like, you know what? I was going to have a party and just invite a couple of people by. And he's like, yeah, sure, let's do that. So he invited a few people by and whichever, and it kind of ballooned. Sometimes this happens with Manhattan parties that are unclear about things. So it went up to our roof, and there were like all these people there, and a friend of a friend of a friend. Like, it was literally one of my friends at the time was dating this woman, and my current wife knew her. Well, she showed up at the party, and she was the last
Uh-huh.
person. She was the last person I spoke to all night.
It sounds like a lot of like How I Met Your Mother. Have you watched that show?
Bizarrely, I haven't.
It
Everyone's
sounds
told
like a
me.
lot of it, yeah.
Yeah, everyone's told me I should. But she showed up, and she was like the last person I spoke to for the rest of the night. And in a cool way, at our wedding, so many people were there the day that we met. So that was kind of cool. Um, but we were both going to leave. We weren't going to stay in New York, either of us.
Okay.
Yeah, but then we got married, and we stayed for like another 15 years.
Okay. That's kinda long, yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Not suffering, not bad. We had a great time of it. There got to know some wonderful, dear friends that I would have never known otherwise, and yeah, it was good. But it was kind of like, okay, if we don't make this happen, we may not.
How long now have you going back to being now in France, like, how long can you renew the visa until you get, like, a
We got permanent residency.
permanent residency?
I really should know more about this off the top of my head. I think that I can apply for permanent residency after 5 years being here,
Mhm.
or at least apply for like hey, can we look at this longer?
Yeah.
Right now, it requires a 1 year renewal, but it gets much easier. Like the
Okay.
last time we went, it was just simple. Like the first time you apply, the way someone described it to me recently was a bit like this. They described it in terms of a business visa because I was looking into that. They said, well, um, in the first year, you basically are going to present your business idea and tell them what you're there for and all that other stuff. Then, that's the hard part. You need to justify it. You need to explain all these things. But then the renewals are kind of like, well, you remember what I said I was going to do last time? Well, I'm still doing that. And here's what's going on. And so the next ones wind up being much, much easier.
Okay. And, how did you still go back to the US sometimes?
Yeah, we've probably gone back about once a year so far. Like when we did the first renewal, geez, I guess we've been back about 3 or 4 times. My wife's been back more. She
Okay.
has family in Chicago, and her parents are a little bit older, so they needed help with a
Mhm.
couple of different things, and so she's gone back a few more times than I have.
Mhm.
But we'll see. I actually Right now, it is quite literally the concerns of her family. And then I don't really have any other driving reasons to go back too often. I mean, my family is over there and all that too, but I don't know. I just saw my brother in Italy not that long ago. My sister just came over here a little while ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I've told my other brother to get his passport.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's always good to have passport. Yeah.
It's amazing to me that he doesn't, you know? Yeah.
And but is there something that you miss
It,
besides family that you see?
yeah, I mean, it's really funny. When I came here, I had a really like I Mexican food is where this is going.
Oh yeah, I hear that a lot.
Yeah, because it's like, sorry, New York Mexican food is wonderful. Mexican food in America broadly is phenomenal, and I know that sounds silly, but like Mexican food is obviously great in Mexico, but there's been such a long and positive cultural influence from Mexico into the United States, especially in food.
Mhm.
There's just so much of it. It's amazing. So, but they don't seem to like get that here. And I want to be wrong. I will listen to anybody. I will check anything out. And I've found some folks here, some people who import some food products. But like just the casually available quality Mexican, like I miss a taqueria.
That's funny. When we were in France, we saw taquerias a lot.
Were you in
Like,
Paris?
no, I
Okay.
mean, Paris too, but we went to oh god, I will butcher the name. Cannes.
Yeah, come. Yeah.
Cannes. Okay, yeah. So definitely, I mean, I guess it's the same size city, probably.
Probably. Definitely better known.
That,
Yeah.
but so there are a bunch of taquerias there. I thought like, wow, that's the new like it food.
That might be, and but then the trouble is like sometimes it's made really bland for the French
Right.
palate or for what people want
Probably.
to have. Like I had probably the first really good like flavorful Indian meal I've had in France that I didn't actually have to like interview the guy at the restaurant and just be like, no, no, honestly, like I used to live here and I lived in a Bengali neighborhood in Brooklyn. And then we lived, in a Pakistani neighborhood up in the Bronx. And we really enjoyed the food and the flavors and the, could you please put some heat in this thing, please, sir, kindly. And like,
Okay.
but it was an interview and that was in Bordeaux and there was good, and it's just, at a point, restaurants also have to take care of their customers. It's got to appeal to the locals.
Yeah. Yeah, because they will probably think it's too spicy.
Some,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
But when I thought like the French food is but they like really strive more in the bland foods, in the breads and the butter and the yogurt.
Yeah, but I mean, like French food is funny because like it's so well documented. There's a series of boy, I think a lot about this, but like there's a big emphasis about terroir, or whatever. My French is ridiculous. So it's so where there's a guy who put this really well, and he was a critic, and he basically said that a food should taste of what it is. So that like a steak should taste like a really phenomenal steak, and an apple like the best appley appleness you can
Yeah,
get,
yeah, uh-huh.
and so the whole idea is that you really want to amplify those things up. And I get that. So I guess heavy sauces with a series of spices and, as delicious as that is, as wonderful as that is. Oh yes, also missing Caribbean food, specifically Trini. Love Trini food. But like those sauces, those are, maybe that's antithetical, to
Uh-huh.
that thinking. Maybe they just like bland stuff. I don't know. But there's definitely some hot sauce, people getting into hot sauce and other things over here. I don't know. Folks have got to make a business of it. I just haven't found really good Mexican, and I want to be wrong.
Okay, but and what is it that you really like, really appreciate?
There's a lot. It's the culture's got like there's just this country has been such a cultural producer for so long, and there's so many like weird things that went on here in the 20th century, especially just musically or
Mm-hmm.
in terms of artistic and cultural production.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just odd. I like the history here. I like finding out things that I write. I mentioned it. I think when we were offline, but I write a blog that's basically just like food, culture, and music explorations, and my own like odd experiences,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of diving into strange stuff is fantastic to me.
Yeah, it's really rich in history and in culture, I feel, right?
I feel like anywhere is, but like I think that the realities, like there's like an export version of any country, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
this version, like we see it in the guidebooks, and it's like, oh yeah, well that's the Eiffel Tower, the, I don't know, Champs Elysees or whatever, Paris, and a few other places. But France is huge,
It
and there's a
is,
lot
yeah.
of other strange and very interesting details of this place that I don't know. I find that fascinating. You
Yeah, it's
know?
also very diverse um in nature, in
Yeah,
landscape, because you have the Alps, you have this beautiful ocean side, the Atlantic coast with beaches and surfing, but
yeah,
then you also have like further north, like Normandy.
yeah. The cliffs and things. Auvergne, when we first spent time there, this is in the center. Auvergne is full of volcanoes.
Ah, okay.
The whole central massif is shaped by puy, which are these kind of low domed. I'd never heard the word before in my whole life before I went there. It's like puy de dome, puy de everything, and so there's this really. It's just this beautiful rolling volcanic landscape.
Hmm.
It's incredibly diverse, the landscape here.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah. Deserts in the south and so on. I mean, that's another thing. Like, I feel like I barely explored the place.
Right. And it's big too, Brittany, right?
Brittany's pretty big, and France is over. I mean, I I would really just check a map for this, but I like Brittany because it reminds me of Maine.
Yeah,
Um,
uh-huh.
and not quite as cold, definitely as rainy. Coasts are beautiful, a lot of oysters, a lot of fish, a lot of really like beautiful spots, a lot of standing stones around. Like you just go driving past them and like, oh hey, there's like a menhir, and
Mhm.
somebody tipped that rock up on its end like 5,000 years ago maybe, and it's still here. It's kind of funny.
Yeah. But what is it then that you struggled with the most?
Mm. You remember that language thing?
Yeah. Okay.
Man, that comes up fresh and in new ways all the time.
Oh.
And there's times I was telling a friend recently, like when I first got here, it was like the only times that I'd go like a day without some sort of awkward social interaction were the days that I didn't leave the house.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Now that happens like once a week, but
Okay.
there's still a couple of winters where it's just like, ooh, I don't even know what words I said, but that felt bad.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just funny. I mean, I'm at the point where I speak enough French that people think I really speak French, and I'm still just faking it.
You fake it till you make it.
Yeah, it's like, yeah.
And are there like, but like for like a whatever the typical expat,
Mm.
what are other things then they have to struggle with? Like, what is there to expect when you just move there, let's say?
Everybody famously talks about the paperwork here, and you'll hear it all over the place.
Yeah.
But boy, and I'm gonna go through the basics that people always say, but the bank account thing is a famous one. Like, so
Uh-huh.
we had somebody help us out and get our Portugal bank account set up, which was really good to have an account set up in euros. A simple way to do that, by the way, would be to use Wise, where you can use other currencies and then swap
Yeah.
it into euros
Yes,
and
I use
whatnot.
it too. It's good.
Yeah, they really want to have euro-based currency. Ideally, a European bank, optimally, a French bank. And in our case, to get an actual bank account set up, I talked to or tried to talk to at least six banks before I actually got a hold of one person. And they're like, yeah, okay, I will help you solve that. But it was getting to one person that would solve it because The banks wanted me to have a French cell phone number. The French cell phone companies required that I have a bank account in France in order to get the cell phone to
Mm,
open the bank account and so on.
right. So
That
it's
was
a
a
circle.
pretty tight feedback loop, that one. And really they recognize the problem too. And you just have to kind of get somebody who's going to cut through that
Mm-hmm.
and just be like, yeah, that's a thing. Hold on, we will get to. So that kind of unlocks it when you get a hold of somebody that is willing to smooth that out for you. And that
Mm-hmm.
just requires kind of patience and persistence and never losing your patience about it and just politely following up and
Mm-hmm.
showing up on time with your dossier with all of the paperwork as they asked for, so it is, correct. And you probably should bring a pen too, just in case.
Okay.
Just in
Just
case.
bring a pen. That's always good to have.
Yeah, because I had a guy miss a pen, and I think he went out on a coffee and a cigarette break, and then came back like half an hour later. Bring a pen. But the bureaucracy is famous, and getting apartments, similar thing. Getting having somebody to help us and speak on our behalf was essential.
Mm-hmm. How did you find that?
In our case, we paid for a service,
Ah,
and good, but Paris-based service trying to operate out here, they didn't really know the local market, and that was a part of the thinking.
mm-hmm.
So what seemed like a deal for Paris was not a deal here.
Ah, got it. Yeah.
And I would just use a local agent.
Mm-hmm.
It just that's just make sure you do. And we also it was us too. We didn't really communicate clearly about what we wanted. We weren't really 100% sure about what we could find
Right.
or what the market really was like. And we had a lot of other things going on that we just didn't really have our heads clear about at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And they can only do so much. If you don't tell them, they won't know.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so you have to communicate
Yeah.
your visions, what it is to have, what you want to have.
Yeah, I mean, case in point, part of the reason our apartment's so expensive is there's really good schools.
Mm,
Great.
okay, but you don't have kids?
We don't have kids.
Yes, okay.
We
So
also
you
have a
don't need to be
parking
there.
spot and we don't have a car. I'm like,
Okay,
I don't want this. Like, I mean,
right.
it's handy occasionally when we rent a car, but we don't own a car. I mean,
Okay, so yeah, for that time where you rent a car, you can find street parking.
yeah, or something. It's
Yeah.
like, I don't know. It's just funny. But we've had a lot of time to think on all this.
So for
And
next time, you know better.
yeah, for next time, know better. And even for our dip out into Portugal, getting into France, it was much, much better. But
Uh-huh.
still a lot to learn. And it's an intense bit of learning, that's for sure. With just all of this, just your cultural. There's like this. There's like a learning you have in your head where it's like, okay, I know this thing, I know this thing, and I guess again, maybe it's a bit like the language. Like I could read French, but if you talk to me about it, maybe I'll get it.
Yeah.
And it hasn't really landed in my body, that type of knowledge yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't really attuned myself to it. And I think the entire process is like that, where where here, we kind of just recently made the decision, okay, we're really going to try and stay here.
Mm-hmm.
And making that decision and kind of landing here and feeling like, oh, okay, we're not at home. We're not like French, but we can find our home here
Mm-hmm.
and be comfortable here. And that lands slowly. It like takes time for like the body to trust it in a way.
Yeah. And but I just want to ask again for the language thing, is
Mm.
it sometimes that you really try to avoid it if you can? Or like when you, let's say, like you go out, is it that like you already think about it, like, oh no, like now I have to
Def-
speak French again. Now I really have to. Is there like a dread or something about it?
Definitely was for a while.
Uh-huh.
Definitely, I've gotten used to the dread, I guess is something like it's like, yeah, dread's normal, dread's fine, you know. But it's also like, you also have so many other successes in the end, like
Okay.
and you build up on those too.
Right. So you also have like sometimes like a success feeling. So it's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
no,
I
absolutely. And
learned.
sometimes
Uh-huh.
I'm just like, you know what, guy, like I went to like the bakery near me, and there was this one guy, and he corrected the way that I said, bonjour, and I'm like, thank you. Can I get a loaf of bread
In French or in English?
in French? And I was just like, that's what I would like.
Yes.
Any further grammar tips? I want a baguette and I want to leave, and I hope you have a good day. Thank you, baguette. Like baguette, like it was just, and so there's always going to be some people like that. I wound up going to like to a tobacco. Like there, you do a lot in a tobacco here, candy and magazines. So I decided,
Yeah, I would pronounce it tabak. Yeah,
no,
the
yeah,
tabak store,
it is most certainly
tobacco store.
not pronounced the way I just said it in French. Most, yes. So I go in and I wanted to buy this magazine, right? And I forget what I said, like "Je voudrais ce magazine" or some stuff like that. And so she corrects me. It's like "Je veux," whatever. I'm like, thank you.
Isn't it
And
what I just said?
and I got the magazine, and I've got money. Now that's a fairly international symbol. We're like, yeah, just work it out, I got the
Yeah,
phone too. I'll do whatever, but I actually have bills and the magazine. She proceeds to write it down for me.
because already she assumed that you don't understand it.
Clearly, or I'm not replicating it the way that she wants. She says it again. She's written it down for me. There's people in a line forming behind me. There's like
Mhm.
4 people now, and nobody's saying anything about this. Nobody, they're just waiting while she does this. And I'm like, uh-huh. And after I just sort of let it be, I'm like, you know what? I tried to pronounce
Yeah,
it like 3 or 4 times. You're okay with it. And at that point, I'm like, you know what, lady? I'm leaving with this magazine. I am not, you're not winning this one. I'm buying,
right.
I came in for it. I'm getting the magazine, and you probably never see me again, guaranteed. But nobody said anything. And I think that they didn't love waiting either.
Yeah.
But I mean, if I thought about it now, like at the time, it was humiliating. Like my ears were hot. And I'm like, uh, but when I think back on that moment, because it was weird, because no one else has done anything within a million miles of that. Nobody.
Okay.
Like that was one really weird moment. One really weird.
Experience. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Oof, never went back. But I think everyone else was probably just like, you know what? This will end soon enough. I will get what I want, and I'll be about my business too. I don't think they thought it was a good idea.
Yeah.
Although I first did, I'm like, wait, everybody's like this? Everybody's going to correct me? These people
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
it's okay and
Yeah.
normal? No, I think they hated it too, but they're just like, oh, it's only going to get worse if I get involved. You know?
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not always like this.
No, it's
So
never like
people
that.
also understand what you're saying with the mistakes you are making.
Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah.
again, case in point, if you walk into a bakery, I mean, you're going to order something in a baked good. Like
Yeah.
you've got whatever that is. There's confusions, but it's just not that big a thing. Like people, you either get used to your confusion, you get used to figuring out how you communicate about it. You have your good days, it builds. You get more of like a repertoire of your language and things you want to say. People get used to you.
It's like, oh, it's a guy again who
Yeah.
does not speak French.
Yeah. But oh, he's getting better because they are encouraging. It's funny.
Yeah.
I think that the okay, so rest assured, there's definitely some French folks that are jerks because that's universal. I just haven't found that to be most people at all. I've
Uh-huh.
actually had most people be overwhelmingly nice about things, be really
Mhm.
supportive of my efforts,
Mhm.
uh, and frankly, be kind of funny and kind about it.
Okay. And in France, or where you are in France, like how do they react to Americans?
We're here. There's not a lot of us here as it all goes, or maybe there are. I haven't really like sought out local American community. Maybe I should. I don't know. But you just nothing like a non thing. You know,
It's
you're
that nothing, you don't get like the same question over and over.
oh well, people always describe. You know, oh, you're from New York. I went to New York once, or and blah blah. I went to here,
Yeah.
and here's and let me tell you about my vacation. Or they tell you like they went to Florida, and and
Yeah.
I went to Disneyland,
That's what I always get too.
yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, you're from Germany. Oh yeah, I've been to Munich. Oh, I've been to Berlin. I went to the Oktoberfest. I guess it's a universal thing.
It must be, like whatever. But again, that's that like export version of a place. Germany's
Yeah.
got their stereotypes that are out there in any other country. I mean, I'm 100% sure that France's stereotypes of Germany are different than American stereotypes of
Yeah.
Germany, or who knows, the Danes. But there still is that like export version when you're on the ground in a culture. It operates differently. It's not vacation.
Yeah.
It's your thinking is different. Although I still eat an extraordinary amount of bread here.
Yeah.
Uh, like,
Do you ever feel bloated?
no, that's so weird.
Interesting. Okay.
Well, I
Because
mean,
I just had it. Like at France, I always felt so bloated from eating so much bread.
well, you can totally do the vacation eating. I mean, I eat a lot of bread, I guess, for me, but I mean, I can eat an entire baguette every day, but like,
Uh-huh.
no problem. I have a friend here who's like, yeah, that's breakfast and that's lunch and that's dinner. And like,
Yeah.
but he's the guy who eats like, he has like ramen noodles and he's dipping bread in it and eating the noodle. Like he seems to live on nothing but starch. I don't know, but you don't eat like that all the time is the thing. And, vacation eating's a real threat. You can eat real heavy here if you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I also, talking about food again, I wanted to talk about your step stick.
Geez, I should probably mention more about that. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, so it's under my name, Keith Christensen at .substack.com. It's called Finding Home Elsewhere, Curious Outside America. And right now it's in France, but it's literally anywhere that I travel or start looking into. And it focuses on music, kind of culture and my experiences, and food.
Mhm.
And I try, and I've been really pleased that a lot of the stuff I pull up is stuff that even surprises some of the French people I know.
Uh-huh.
Like I'm writing about disco right now, and because okay, disco is an amazing musical art form, and people should appreciate it. But it's also like fun. Like I didn't realize that the guy who created the Village People was French, and
Oh,
and
I didn't know either.
yeah, totally, and neither did the French people. And so it's like, yeah, he was originally from Casablanca, Morocco, and then lived in Paris. He came over as like a really young kid, grew up in Paris, and then went over to New York and created the Village People. And I love just these weird things like it because say whatever you want about disco or the Village People, the songs, like it's or at least
Yeah, yeah,
YMCA.
exactly. Uh-huh.
And so it's these odd little cultural connections that I think are a lot of fun. And the same thing with food. And I hate to say I don't have a really sophisticated system. Um, this is how I keep track of it. So music is on Mondays, food is on Fridays, and then I do whatever else on Wednesdays. That's it. That's the only way I remember it.
Okay,
It's just
but you post like 3 times a week?
I
Wow,
do.
that's quite frequent.
Yeah, well, I mean, background as a writer, and I try and keep it like a little bit interesting. They're not all long, and they're not
Mhm.
all like these intense pieces.
Okay.
But and I have a huge amount of info on it. But it's also like if I could do the music thing, I'd do it more often. Like I listen to all kinds of genres, and
Okay.
I did a whole rap sequence here
Uh-huh.
because but France
France is
for
big. Yeah,
France
it has.
is huge. In
Uh-huh.
fact, so it's like for a long time was the second biggest nation in terms of rap in the world, and the francophone rap world is definitely huge. But apparently, Germany has actually kind of taken over that. There's some really good German artists.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I know, I'm from Germany. I mean, to me, it was always big. Like, it was German hip hop was so big when I was like a teenager. Yeah.
But I mean, that sounds so obvious to you, but I guarantee you, if I were to talk to friends back in New York, they'd be like, German hip hop, really?
I know, yeah, but it is a big thing there, yeah.
Yeah. No, it's just so. I mean, it's all that. It's like all this stuff that like you get all this extra odd cultural bits that you find and that are a part of the real knowledge of a place. And I think this started because I wanted to create something that like, okay, if I was talking to people at a party and I had some people from France and the US, what would be something that would be interesting to all of them that they wouldn't necessarily know about? And that's like the whole idea.
Right, and music is such a big common ground.
Yeah. And from
And
and
food
and
too.
food, yeah. And
Yes,
it's
everybody has to eat.
yeah. And you can always talk to people about food in this country. They're like everybody's got an opinion about food here.
Oh yeah, I mean, I had French roommates when I was in San Francisco, and I don't know, they always bought their French butter. I was like, butter, butter, butter. Always
It
like,
matters.
oh yes.
Yeah. So it's something, and I'm sure people disagree, but we're near Bretagne, and apparently Bretagne is like the best butter.
Yeah, we were in Normandy and we drove by the Beurre d'Isigny plant all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so specific about, I think they've got, actually, I don't even know. So the like the AOP, the certification that this is a certain protected
Ah,
type
okay,
food.
okay.
There are thousands of them here for everything from like wine, obviously, I guess, but to cheeses, to beans
Uh-huh.
and
Okay.
type of
Oh,
beans, types of onions, types. Everything's got like an AOP.
okay.
It's really
Interesting.
granular.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. The onions, I don't get it, but boy, someone would correct me about
Yeah,
that.
yeah, probably. I will make sure that I will put your Substack in the show notes,
Sure, thank you.
and then like people can just find you very easily through there.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, it's. I hope it's interesting to folks. Is the bottom line, you know. And then there's another section in there that I was just working on it today, where I'm talking about my leaving New York and leaving the teaching profession and that transition kind of out of the country. And I'm still in the process of working on some of that too.
Mhm.
So it's a little bit hyper specific between like New York to Portugal and New York to France.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that might be really interesting to some people who like focus on those places too.
I hope so. I mean, in the end, there's this big kind of weird universal thing, and I think I mentioned this to you offline. But you know, you spend so much time thinking about all this relocation. I mean, when we moved, we took apart our whole old lives. We sold a house. We'd never sold a house in our lives before. And there's all
Mhm.
this like chaos of
I
all
know,
these
yeah.
things, and you just tear up your roots to everything and move somewhere else, and you're reestablishing yourself somewhere. It's different, and you so much involved with it, and people don't tend to ask you too much about it. It's part of the reason why I love what you're doing with this. I love this podcast and this idea because otherwise you would never hear the process.
Yeah, it is a big process. I mean, like also like it's I don't know, like you really think about it and you think like three times about it because it is such a big effort. It's like, hey, I have a house. I have a good job at the moment. What about the kids in school? They have their friends. You know, there are like so many things that are like yeah, have to be unrooted.
Yeah, the rooting thing has really been the metaphor in my head, like the idea that you're taking like this bare root plant and just moving it somewhere else
Yeah.
entirely.
Yes, never and then there's, like, the same for roots, it's like, never, replant a grown tree.
Well, we moved over. We're over 50, and it's feeling a little grown that way. So it. But you know what? You are, and it takes time, and it's a shock. But I will tell you, I probably practiced and rehearsed how to order a baguette like 75 times before I
Uh-huh.
started getting it right. It was running through my head. It's like, okay, he's going to ask, what do I want? And so many times, but it takes that.
Yeah. Do you feel now at home?
Working on it,
Working on it.
getting closer. I feel
Yes.
familiar.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Not home totally, but going to stay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good way of saying it.
Well, yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah.
You gotta build your house in a way. You
Right.
really have to build towards it.
Yeah. All right. I guess we're at an end. Our
Okay.
time is our time's up.
Oh, that's fine. Again, thank you. I really do appreciate this. I'm glad to have been on, and yeah, I definitely want to spend more time listening to more of your podcasts.
Thank
I've
you.
listened to a few so far,
Oh,
but
great. Thank
it's
you. All
yeah,
right. Yeah. And thank you so much for your time as well.
sure.
It was really nice to hear your story.
Thank you so much, Victoria.
That was Keith. And so make sure check out his Substack. It's called Leaving the US and it is in the show notes. There is a link. Click on it and you will find it. And then I also researched what Cobra stands for and it really has omnibus in it. Who thought? I mean, it means the Consolidated Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act. Yeah, omnibus. Okay. He was right. Yeah, that was it for this week and the first episode in 2025 of Worlds Collide. I go and save my voice now. And thanks for tuning in, and I hope you will tune in again for the next episode in a week. And until then, bye. Or for this one, au revoir.